Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and good afternoon to all the listeners. My name is Claudia Seise and I'm a postdoc fellow at the Berlin Institute of Islamic Theology at Humboldt University Berlin, Germany, and I would like to shortly introduce my newly published article, The Transformational Power of Barokah and Silaturahmi in Muslim Indonesia, published with the International Journal of Islam in Asia. Indonesia is the most populous Muslim country in the world. Around 200 million Muslims form 88% of the country's population. Located between the Indian and the Pacific Oceans, the Indonesian Archipelago has been part of important trading routes for centuries, and thus part of translocal networks spanning the Indian Ocean long before the formation of the modern nation-states. This has resulted in a vibrant culture that accommodates 6 major religions, nowadays preserved in the national ideology of Pancasila, which states the belief in the one and only God, Ketuhanan Yang Maha Esa, as its first pillar. I'm a trained area studies scholar and have focused on Southeast Asia. And as an area studies scholar, I learned early to incorporate local concepts in my theoretical and analytical framework. Doing research for my PhD, local and localized concepts and values became an additional focus. So in this article, my arguments reflect a continuous pondering of how local and localized concepts have influenced and shaped Islam in Indonesia. In my article, I propose that there are localized Islamic concepts and practices that can be applied to arrive at a more nuanced understanding of Islam in Indonesia in general and Islamic dynamics and movements in particular. I focus on 2 concepts. One is Barokah, which I translate as divine blessing power, and the second one is Silaturahmi, which is keeping family and kinship ties. Both concepts are localized and add an additional nuance to the Islam found in the archipelago, in the Indonesian archipelago. By analyzing examples from my own ethnographic field research, spanning several years now, I suggest that Barokah and Silaturahmi have transformational powers attached to them that can change a person's understanding of Islam. Therefore, they should be taken into account when analyzing Islamic movements and religious change in Indonesia. Following, I will introduce both concepts shortly. Silaturahmi. So Silaturahmi is a concept based on what God and the Prophet Muhammad said about keeping or mending ties between family or kin. Several verses in the Quran can be used to explain the concept of Silaturahmi. One of these verses is chapter 4, verse 1. O mankind, be dutiful to your Lord, who created you from a single person, and from him he created his wife, and from them both he created many men and women, and fear Allah, through whom you demand your mutual rights. And do not cut the relations of the wombs, which is kinship. This is, the relations of the womb is then Silaturahmi. Surely Allah is ever and all watcher over you. And in another verse, chapter 47, verse 22, it's also related to Silaturahmi. Would you then, if you were given the authority, do mischief in the land and sever your ties of kinship? And then we also have different hadiths that quote and underpin the importance of Silaturahmi. And for example, one that is also often recited in Indonesia is, Whoever believes in Allah in the last day should be hospitable to his guests, and whoever believes in Allah in the last day should maintain his kinship ties. And whoever believes in Allah in the last day should speak well or remain silent. This is from the Bukhari collection. So, however, what I found is that the use of Silaturahmi in its particular sense and practice is unique to Indonesia. And I will show you what I mean. Because my understanding of Silaturahmi in the Indonesian context is that it is a religiously motivated form of social interaction, a practice, through which, consciously or unconsciously, translocal relations are maintained on various scales, from the local to the global, and on different societal levels, including kinship, educational, economic, and religious connections. Silaturahmi is also an intention, niyat, that can serve as a religious motivator as well as a reminder, and is mostly, although not exclusively, and I have several examples of that in my article, used among Indonesian Muslims. In addition, it is important to stress, and this is my main point in this article, that Silaturahmi is accompanied by what I refer to as transformational power. So, practicing Silaturahmi, a person can be exposed to new or different ways of living, interpreting, and practicing Islam. Again, according to my observation, the concept and practice of Silaturahmi is well understood by Muslims and non-Muslims alike in Indonesia, and I give several examples to illustrate and make the reader understand what actually Silaturahmi means in the Indonesian context. The second concept and practice I am talking about in my article is Barokah. And Barokah is a spiritual reality that is usually felt by an individual or a group in their daily activities through the interaction with or usage of certain media connected to Islam. In the narrations about the Prophet Muhammad's life, we can find many instances where the Prophet asks for barakah. And here, barakah is meant in its original and general context, not the context applied to Indonesia. To be bestowed barakah, so divine blessing power, upon food or drink. Also, the Quran, its recitation especially, is considered a source of blessing. And this is also found in a verse of the Quran in chapter 7, verse 96, that God says, like that book, this too is a book which we have revealed, full of blessing, confirming what was revealed before it, so that you might warn the people of the mother of cities and those around it. And so on, the verse goes on. So, in the Indonesian context, Barokah describes a spirituality that is usually felt by an individual or group in their daily activities through the interaction with or usage of certain media. These media can be people, places, things, food, drinks, etc. For the person who believes in Barokah, it is essential for his or her spiritual well-being and development. However, although Barokah is transferred through a certain medium, it comes solely from God. Otherwise, it is seen as an unacceptable practice of shirk, associating partners with God. To acquire Barokah requires spiritual belief in and spiritual knowledge of Barokah. The process of acquiring Barokah is interactive in character, but nevertheless, the actual nature of Barokah is ghaib, so it's supernatural, it's hidden, it's not really explainable. And again, very important for my current argument is that Barokah also has attached to it the potential for transforming a person. Within the larger context of Indonesian society, a person's belief in Barokah can contribute to social, religious change. And I will try to explain this a bit further without going into all the examples I give in the article. If you are interested in these examples, please kindly refer to the article and try to get a better understanding of what I'm talking about through the examples I'm quoting. So, transformational power. Transformational power, I argue that the emic, and here the Islamic perspective, can provide additional insight into contemporary Islamic movements and change in Indonesia. Here, the localized Islamic concept of Silaturahmi and Barokah play an important part in social transformation and dynamics. If we understand the importance of Silaturahmi and Barokah in the worldview of Indonesian Muslims, we can obtain a more nuanced understanding of different dynamics in Muslim Indonesia. So, with different examples from my ethnographic-based field research, I show that the importance of practicing Silaturahmi in Muslim Indonesia can expose a person to different interpretations of Islam, including those in which they have not been socialized. For example, one example from my article is a traditional, so-called traditional Muslim visiting a so-called non-traditional or reformist pesantren Islamic boarding school for Barokah, to obtain Barokah. By visiting this boarding school, of course, they will be exposed to a different understanding than they have learned in their home community. So there is a potential for transforming this young person. And I quote different examples in the article. So the transformational power attached to Silaturahmi allows us to obtain a deeper understanding of dynamics in Muslim Indonesia. In fact, the concept of Silaturahmi plays a vital role in the changing dynamics in Muslim Indonesia. Keeping this eminent role in mind, I propose to include Silaturahmi in the analytical framework of future research about Islam in Indonesia. Looking through the lens of Silaturahmi can help us to understand why certain phenomena exist and how the Islamic landscape in Indonesia is constantly changing. Analyzing Silaturahmi practices in Muslim communities, groups, or individuals can help us to understand shifts or changes in Islamic interpretation and practices as well as Islamic movements. Continuing with the transformational power of Barokah, with different examples, I show that Barokah also has a transformational power attached to it. So through seeking Barokah, one can become easily exposed to different Islamic interpretations and practices. In addition, Barokah and its transformational power contributes to political and social religious change. And I give some very interesting examples in the article that I don't want to mention now because I think I will spoil the excitement. So some really contemporary issues that we might understand better if we look at the concept and the understanding of Barokah and the transformational power attached to it. So in conclusion, I have shown that both localized Islamic concepts analyzed in my article play an essential role in understanding change and dynamics in Muslim Indonesia. For the future study of Islam in Indonesia, I suggest that it would be worthwhile to analyze to what extent Silaturahmi and Barokah contribute to change and transformation in Indonesian society. So that was all for my short introduction to my article. I hope that I found your interest and that you will read the whole article. And of course, I am always keen to receive feedback on my article and on my findings, and also different opinions. Thank you very much for your attention, and have a good day.